Why not?
I fear no evil.
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Good morning.
Okay.
Oh, no.
It's the holiday season.
Still. Thank you.
Brilliant!
Yeah, another day. This is show 364. So we've been doing this every day. Today is, it's currently 4:29 a.m. Eastern Time in the former United States. It's the 30th of December. And I'm pre-approved for $2,000 through Credit One for a credit card that has... Actually, this one only has 23.99%, but this APR will vary with the market based on the prime rate, which is definitely going to go up. However, there's an annual fee of $99. They say you get a $2,000 credit limit, but if you get they have a disclaimer here. So, for example, if you get a minimum credit line of $300, your initial available credit will only be $225. They take $75 right out, so you're paying 23 interest before you get out of the starting gate. My advice for you is to do that whenever you get these things. It should be illegal. And that congressman or senator, whoever it was, who just passed away, I think he was on the part of that banking committee that passed the law that allowed these people to do that and a bunch of other horrendous things to the American people. Disrespect intended, you know. There are heroes and villains, living and dead. Today's show is going to be about this is the end. Not so much, well, but the end of a lot of things, the end of many things. The end is nigh is the title card that may or may not have brought you here. Well, it probably did bring you here. That is what we were looking at here is a picture of the sun expelling. It's basically a nova, not a supernova. It's a nova. It's a sun expelling like its outer shell. And that's what we're going to be experiencing. And it's going to head towards Earth, and it's going to basically be the end. I thought just for the sake of it, you know, out of just to reminisce a tad, that we would do the maybe the weekend weather, even though today's only Thursday. But let's take a look ahead because I'm curious.
Weekend weather.
All right. So here you see the latest NOAA Earth map. And what I've chosen this time, rather than show you the lights of the city at night, the city lights, the pretty lights, they can warm the coldest nights. Anybody know that band? Bueller. The Box Tops. Saw them live in Atlantic City on a steel pier many, many years ago. Anyway, this is the water vapor. This is infrared water vapor. And this is the loop from this morning, right? Like I said, it's 4:33 a.m. This is kind of what's going on right now. And as you can see, there's a southerly flow that's bringing moisture up into the mid-Atlantic, more or less, a little bit southeast. And there's some northerly action coming down, you know, from Alaska, Canada, Alaska way. and kind of westerly flow that's slowly, despite the speed of these other things, kind of slowly going over California into Nevada and Utah. See that? If you really look closely, because of the nature of this infrared light, when the clouds get over certain areas, particularly if you look over in California, Utah area, Colorado, you could see the mountains. You see that? Because it takes the clouds to kind of bring that visibility. There's a little bit of it happening down in Mexico. No, in Mexico. And, that's it. That's the weather. And then none of this has anything to do with CO2. You see there's like a curly Q kind of thing coming up from over, just below Cuba. Anyway, that's our planet. And you can see if you look to the upper left, it's round. She's a round. She's not a flat. She's a round. Anyway, in my neck of the woods, the forecast from now through the weekend is today there's a 20% chance of rain, but it's going to be in the 50s in the overnight 45, kind of like what it is like right now, because it's like 46 degrees right now outside my studio. And it's supposed to rain today. I did some work up in the attic yesterday. And I'm just hoping that it's supposed to start raining at like 5 a.m. I'm downstairs. All that stuff's upstairs. I just hope no water gets into my bedroom. I didn't put anything under where the leak was the other day. And if it does, I'm going to have a puddle on the hardwood floor. I really don't. I hope that doesn't happen. I wouldn't say tirelessly, but I worked pretty hard yesterday to try to figure out a way to channel where the water may be coming from down the wall into this bucket, but I have no idea. And I put some roofing. It's basically the kind of thing they put underneath flashing. It's like a black tar type of substance. Real sticky stuff. I just don't know if it dries, if it's the stuff that stays a little damp so it can move, a little flexible. But I did that at around 11 o'clock yesterday. And maybe not, maybe I did it around 10. So, it's almost, well, it's not almost 24 hours, but I mean, it's approaching it. So I'm hoping what I did yesterday, and I put some more of that tape, it might work. Anyway, Friday is looking like it probably won't rain. But today is looking like it's going to rain, and it wasn't supposed to rain. Saturday's 100% chance of rain, and Sunday thunderstorms, and it's 50s straight through the weekend until it suddenly with this cold snap back into the 20s starting Sunday night onward. So anyway, that's like your weekend weather if you live in the Mid-Atlantic states.
Weekend weather.
I mean, if you live in the weekend or in the Mid-Atlantic states. But if you look at this thing, you could kind of see where the moisture is going. And that's why I bring up these maps. I used to do this all the time, but we're getting at the end, so I thought I would do some of the things we used to do, like tear up a credit card thing. I had like 28 spams in my direct spam folder. This is the one that already goes through like multiple filters. I have 2 different spam filters. Well, technically there's probably about, 5 or 6 spam filters. Ones that generate at my various email providers and then at the ISP level, and then coming in then the machine, my various email, I have different email accounts that kind of are supposed to put stuff in a junk folder, etc. And I have multiple emails. But there were 21 in my general, like, hey, this is junk for sure. 28 this morning. The other, and plus there was tons of junk mail in my inbox. Political stuff. I've tried to get off of the list. I've tried everything I can. I even declare it junk on my own mail program, but they've got, they're just beating it by. They shift around things like the sender, they have your email, but they're constantly changing something in like what the sender is, and it's always a no reply thing. So you can't deal with it usually. And sometimes the sender has like these random generated numbers and stuff like that. So it's just, I don't know what they hope to accomplish. I guess there are suckers out there that get the money, But, the music feature of the day, I thought we'd put like Jim Morrison here. This is the end. This is from some meme generator, I guess. But, while this is a song, this is the end, my beautiful friend, like the end of a relationship type of thing. But the theme of this show is that this is the end. In fact, the exact title of this show is One Way or Another, It's All Over. And and you can't fight the future, I put in the chat. The idea is that, the concept of today's program, this second to last program of the year, a year in which I did a show every single day, right? It's crazy, but it's coming to an end. There are other things to do. And what I wanted to do was focus on some of the reasons. I want to pick up towards if anyone, and no one did, but if there would have been anyone who would have stay tuned to yesterday's show into the second hour, and especially towards the end, where I got into, Jim Morrison, the Doors have some great music. I just realized I have a book upstairs. I know someone must have given me literally 20 or 30 years ago, the lost poems, songs, lyrics of Jim Morrison. And I just noticed it was on my bookshelf. I have a bookshelf upstairs that's got really obscure books and old books and stuff that's mind-blowing. And I rarely buy a book from a new author, but I have actually it's just it takes a lot for me to, and I have some of those, some newer books that I've purchased in recent years. But I have a lot of my collected books that I have from over the years that have to do with how I came to these conclusions. Before I was caught up in the internet and all of this kind of thing, I was researching this stuff, and the way you found out this information was you read about it. A lot of people don't understand that. They just go to the internet. I myself sometimes have, from time to time have kind of forgotten why, because I've written 10 books. But why, I had all these notes and all these ideas and all these things over the years, and I forget you forget that about reading, reading is fundamental, just like freedom is fun. So, yeah, this show is going to deal with the end is nigh, and it's more than the end of this show. It's the end of life as we know it. All right? End of life as we know it. And so I have a few things that I want to bring up. And I'm going to get them into position. There's no reason for us to be looking at the attic anymore. So what I have is, on the second to the last day, the idea of, I didn't do an awful lot of prep, but I did a little show prep here. So this is, obviously a tsunami. And that will be caused by this thing in the background. And not necessarily like a CME or some kind of solar, eruption, but more like what I had on the title card. There. The extinction event. And what I wanted to do is I'm going to take a, break from this. And if I'm going a little bit slow, I'm just trying to set up everything for you so we could get into this discussion. We're going to be talking about two, particular sites that may come up. And one is suspiciousobservers.org, which I highly recommend you check out. And this is a guy named Ben Davidson. He puts this together. All right? And it's an intelligent, very intelligent approach, scientific approach to what's going on. And he has videos that will get you into, this whole thing. He even has this disaster app, which I had for a while, which is very interesting. Like it's actually an app that'll give you notifications of like what's happening with the sun and the magnetic, any kind of activity that can affect us. But he has a whole series of, and I'm trying to see if it's here. Cosmic disaster. He's written a couple of books. He even has a textbook, like a school book out for people. But where is this? Where is his disaster? Here it is. Well, I guess it's this video right here. I mean, this is the whole thing, and will bring you up to a whole series. And what it does is he gets into, every morning he does a show, okay? And he deals with the sunspots, effects, and like, as you can see here, he'll find various scientific papers, peer-reviewed documents, something Nature, and he'll show, what's going on. And he has this playlist, which I don't necessarily see right now, which I'm kind of puzzled, but, I don't want to waste your time doing this. The other guy is the Diehold Foundation. Let's see. I guess we'll have to go through him through YouTube. And that's Diehold Foundation. The guy named Doug Vogt, right? And so here you can see a series of videos. Series 5, Part 1, The Legend of the Last Flood in Nova. How some people survived it. But what you want to do here is you want to go to the Diehold Foundation, and you want to find his playlists, Causes of Ice Ages and Polar Reversals and Mass Extinction, right? See, he's into, like, he's basically decoding Hebrew scriptures and stuff and trying to find bases of what's going on. In other words, the universe is a die-hold. It's like a computer, and he ties it into this whole other thing. But I wouldn't necessarily get into that first. If you want an introduction, here's 27 videos. Now, you won't fit in mood for binge watching and really learning, getting an overview. He's not the greatest presenter of his own information, you know, with all due respect to the guy. But it's worth, you know, it's worth dealing with. And good morning, Trey. I just see you were in. I'm showing 0 streams right now, so I don't know what's going on with my concurrent viewers. But anyway, between Davidson and Vogt, Suspicious Observers, and the Die-Hold Foundation on YouTube, you could find like a tremendous amount of videos that deal with this issue. And the idea that this issue is only being talked by, like, you know, certain group of people, right? But yet the details and the specifics and the evidence is, you know, is throughout science, archaeology, right? SpaceX, you know, astrophysics, the mission to the moon, for example. This glass beads that are found on Mars, the moon, and Earth. That shown that this type of thing has happened before on all three. It's like towards the end of yesterday's show, when I was getting into Elon Musk and trying to figure out his mind, for example, saying how could such a brilliant engineer, and I showed you those pictures of the moon base, you know, just some of the illustrations and the plans they have, that Musk admits himself he won't live to see. See, that's another illusion people have, because everybody's so used to some instantaneous video game internet type of world. It's like I was saying about me learning about this stuff originally was through years of me seeking out books in places and libraries and, you know, what have you. You know, before the internet, right? And people forget about that. The internet, you know, like, it's like they forget about the smartphone, and apps have only been around for like a decade and a half or so. It's such a short period of time. And I understand if you're in your 20s or maybe 30, you know, you grew up in an age of the internet, and it was just a very short period of time by the time you reached your tweens, or definitely high schoolers, or junior high school, into if you went to college. You finally, these things just existed, and you became dependent upon them. But for the rest of everyone else, you know, there's 8 billion people on the planet now, practically. But for the rest of everyone, and to this day, while they may have some kind of cheap smartphones that they're trying to distribute in places like Africa and poor areas in Southeast Asia and South America and Central America and places like that, they don't have the access that you have, that most people have, right? And so, and they don't even have access to the books and the education. But this idea, you know, people just take for granted that there's the, you know, and so everything revolves around that world, and as if that world will never end. But the world will end. That world. and is destined to end from probably something like a CME, what we called the Carrington Event I got into yesterday, a recurring thing that they believe there are minor ejections every 80 and major ejections every, say, 160 years or something around that. The one that occurred about approximately maybe 100 and I think it was the 1860s, if I'm correct. So, that one would have been, if that were to happen today, and it will happen again, it'll just spell total, destruction of the majority of the grid and satellites, and definitely the internet and cell phone, smartphones will to be a thing of the past. See, it will be virtually impossible to rebuild the infrastructure. That it's funny, how politicians have talked about, and I'm definitely not going to get into politics. I was just glancing at, in order to get onto this, this platform.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
In the morning, I have to go through YouTube because I'm broadcasting through YouTube Studio, even though I'm using a third-party open source program to do this stuff. That's how I'm able to bring up these various slides and take them down and all that with the titles, etc. And so the first thing I do is I hit the YouTube, like a YouTube start page. And the preposterousness of the videos. Because you're seeing everything there, from clips from, these podcasting vloggers, YouTube millionaires, right? To clips from news media, and then clips from general just people that are obsessed, news junkies, and are all caught up in that world. And this is a whole world of imitation life, of meaninglessness. Politics is meaningless. When most of us grew up, unless you got into political science, like if you were a political science major in school, right, you were into politics. I wasn't a political science major, but when I was younger in high school, my first year, it's funny, my first year or two in high school, and this is worth, because describing this thing, I was on student government and I was on the football team, right? So I was like, and prior to that, I played football in what you would call junior high, but we didn't call it that then. It was like 7th or 8th grade, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, whatever. And I played football, what we call minor league baseball. I might have been on even student government back then. And, I was a Boy Scout and I had merit badges when I was a kid, all that stuff. Went to camp, right? Did all that stuff as a kid. But, I started getting an interest in music in, around 8th grade, getting into, while I was just getting in, starting in high school. And then I kind of moved into growing my hair long, listening to, the music of the day, rock music, getting in a rock band. And basically, so I transitioned from being a student government football player, the potential All-American, being interviewed for like how they try to pick Rhodes Scholars and, that kind of stuff, what people call the Illuminati. I got into that, like explaining some of this stuff in earlier shows. In other words, how they handpick certain people. because I was like on that path, and I had the look and the ability that I could have gone. I could have been a player, political player, you know, and been on their, you know, one of their type of people, whatever area they would choose or select to use me in. Like, this is real stuff. Now, I was unaware of the concept at the time of that. I was I would be called by, you know, these people to come have dinner, and you know, and they one-on-one dinners with like the heads of certain things, which I thought was kind of odd, right? But as it turned out, it's what they were interviewing me because that's where they pick people, right? It's like junior high and early high school. That's how they pick people. It's like the CIA used to grab people out of Columbia. I also worked at Columbia, you know, which is interesting, you know. But they were plucking people out of Columbia right and left for the CIA. But I decided to grow my hair long, get into rock and roll band, and ended up, you know, creating an underground newspaper in my high school, which was ridiculous. And without getting into that story, which I've told over videos this year, that it was the principal towards the end who actually thought I was going to the dark side, which he didn't really understand. I was basically going to the right side, not right wing. I mean, I was seeing the light. But he was instrumental in getting me a radio job when I was a senior in high school, thinking that would help channel my underground newspaper type of thing. And since I was this rock and roller type of thing into radio, and so it would be, you know, get me out of, you know, becoming some radicalized thing. But I was anything but radicalized. I was just seeing life the way it really was, starting to see life the way it really was. Though it took me many, many years to really see life. Anyway, so so my quest began. Enough of that. Okay. And so, you know, that's how life was. And all you had at that point was the library, books, and experience. And so I went out and I traveled the world and all around the country and experienced life and read about things. And, you know, that's that. And I have a library in my own house that's like rivals, you know, some classic people's, you know, classic libraries. You know, it's not like I have volume after volume of books, but the books I do have are, you know, are incredible works with incredible information in them. And most were acquired prior to the internet being what it is now. And if the internet blanked out the way it's going to, it's how I started this. There are multiple reasons that, you know, multiple factors that are going to signal the end of life as we know it. Okay? Some are, and they're in various degrees. Okay? And that's why I say the end is nigh, you know, or, you know, the whole concept, you know, the Mars, this is the end. And people look at this and they would think, oh, what are you talking about, man? You're like out, you lost it. That guy's lost it. Good riddance if you stop doing these shows. My chair's falling down. Of course, that's another reason why I'm going to stop doing these shows. This is freaking chair. I'm tired of that. But these things that are going to happen are basically on, you know, from minor things, what would be minor annoyances to the average person, but will be major annoyances to, you know, people who just expect life to wake up and life is the same way it was the day before. So we could have a minor Carrington type of event I keep using that word, and I think people don't understand what I'm talking about. Hi, Trey. How's it going, man? So let's look up the Carrington Event just so you have an idea. You can see it. You understand what I'm talking about. The Carrington Event, you should be able to see this. The Carrington Event was the most intense geomagnetic storm in recorded history, occurring on 1-2 September 1859 during solar cycle 10. It created strong auroral displays that were reported globally and caused sparking and fire in multiple telegraph systems. Can you see that? That's all we had at that time that was basically susceptible to this sort of, solar outburst. All right. So it literally set the wires, because the telegraph, that's all we had back in the 1859, 1860, and and that was a disaster, and some telegraph offices actually were set afire, which were usually like along train stations and different things like that. The easiest way to run wiring. Anyway, and our grid, when we started building our initial grid, it was similar. It was along the telegraph lines, the early phone lines. Okay, so flash forward to the present day. All right. So if you take 100 years from approximately 1860, that's 1960. All right. And if you add 60 years on to 1960, you get 2020. All right. Now, these events are cyclical, but like I try to explain with the 12,000-year cycle and the 6,000-year cycles, and there's even a 400-year cycle that has to do with grand solar minimums and things like that. It's not on the day or on the exact year. These are approximations because they're grand cycles, and they have to do with things like the Earth. You've got axial tilt. You've got, like the spinning of the axis, which is called precession. And then you have to remember our entire solar system is being dragged. It's not like some model that you see in school. It's being dragged by the sun. Like, imagine the sun is like a comet almost. Because the speeds are incredible. And the sun is like hurling through space, and it's dragging the solar system with it. And so that you have this Milky Way galaxy that we're a part of that's also in motion. Okay? And that's why you can go back, to all cultures all over, and you see these, same, what people call, astrological signs, some people look at, the constellations, and why these things appear. All right, because they signaled everything from harvest time and seasons, right? Because they were recurring. People look to the sky. We don't see the sky anymore because of the city lights, right? Even in neighborhoods, it's like, even my neighborhood, there was one night I was out. One night it was garbage day, and my garbage bag was real windy. And we'll get into that because these winds we've been having lately, this chair definitely going wacko today. I might have to do that a couple times. But my garbage bag was blown across the street when I got up in the morning to do the show, and so before I got on the air, I had to go outside in the cold. And my bag was almost in the street. I'm surprised a truck or something didn't run over it. But when I was out there in the middle of the street, something made me look up, and I looked up and I saw a lot of stars. Like, not a lot of stars. Not like out when I went to other parts of the country, out into the deserts and places like that where it's just the sky is just filled with stars. But there were more stars than I normally would see, like, say, walking in the morning, even though it was dark, to the grocery store or something like that. But people, ancient times, were more aware of this precession, they call it. All right? Precession of the equinoxes, Anyway, so what I'm trying to get at is that, so even if we were to have a minor Carrington type of event, which, as you can see, is a realistic thing, and there's evidence that these kinds of things have recurred. That's like it would take out a good portion of the grid and would destroy many satellites and many and the ability for, in other words, there would probably be, I'm really wondering if, like, Elon Musk's little tiny, his internet satellites, he's sending up these thousands of these things, right, to have internet. And this is why I started out using Elon Musk and the Mars thing, like questioning, like, is he so, like, focused on engineering, right? SpaceX and this autopilot type of, autonomous driving vehicles and the Tesla robots and the Mars mission, the moon mission to the Mars mission. And so his mind's so focused. Like, he's the chief engineer, I think, at SpaceX or Tesla or one or the other, if not both. I think at SpaceX. That he's not thinking about this stuff and maybe not aware of it. And he might look at this as like fringe science, but maybe not even science, maybe just as like fringe conspiracy theory, right? Bring up that word people love to use. But the idea is it's not. The Carrington event was a real event. The Younger Dryas period in North America, and other parts of the planet, was a real thing. There was a thing called the saber-toothed tiger. There were woolly mammoths. There were these, like, giant bears, and they all went extinct between 10,600 to 12,000 years ago, when North America, the northern part of North America, was covered with ice. And they were flash frozen, found with undigested food in their stomachs. Like, it's not something up for debate even. What's up for debate is it's like these people that have discovered these shards of glass and folded glass and strange glass in deserts around the planet. And what they do, and the same with the Younger Dryas period, this mass melting of this ice thing, which we'll get back to as far as the U.S. and indigenous peoples here, like another lie that we've been taught, is they'll say, oh, it was caused by an asteroid. But see, the problem with the asteroid theory, and even a guy like Randall Carlson, like, I don't know, I've heard him, like, I think, but I can't speak for him. Check out Randall Carlson, some of his, he'll acknowledge all of the things that occurred in the Younger Dryas period. I mean, he's one of the most literate guys on the Younger Dryas period. It's kind of his wheelhouse, so to speak. All right? But I can't say with certainty that he's accepted the nova concept, the recurring nova. See, what we found from, and there are scientific papers, peer-reviewed papers in leading academic journals that will verify this, that stars, nova, and supernova. So that some stars just do a thing where the star remains there, but it has this nova event, not a supernova as in the explosion, mass explosion that we were taught as kids, the death of a star, right? No, stars have recurring novas, and you could find lists of them and some with like a much more frequency than 12,000 years. Some seem to do this at a much faster clip. All right. So I don't know if Carlson, and he's not watching this, and but you can seek him out and at least understand. See, you have to put all of the pieces together to understand what I'm talking about. And so the best way to put all the facts together are to go and seek out the facts. And so the individuals may not all agree on this cataclysmic event that I'm speaking about, this near extinction event, like what the cause was. But they all agree that these things happened. But what you see is when you look at everything in the aggregate, the totality of it all right? Like I say, if you connect all of the dots, you'll see that people who say, well, a comet, asteroid hit or split up in the atmosphere, and part of it hit Greenland and the western northwest portion of North America, causing this ice melt that in effect of these insane glaciers that basically dug out these gorges, right, and all of that sort of thing. But that doesn't explain that on the complete other side of the planet, right, you have in these desert zones, you have sand turned to glass, as if it was, which requires ridiculous amount of heating, all right? And it's folded and bent and weird and contains extraterrestrial elements, okay? And you have that glass beading found in various areas. So when you put all of those pieces together, there was clearly a global event that occurred approximately between 10,600 and 12,000 years ago. Okay? Or approximately 12,000 years ago. Right. Then you had the Carrington Event that occurred like 160 years ago. It was like a minor event about 80 years ago, but it was nothing. And then you have, like I say, you had the Maunder minimum. You get these solar minimums where you have like 400 years ago or so. All of these various things that happened that mostly are solar related, not necessarily externally, from an asteroid or a near Earth object, NEOs as they call them. Right? So, what I'm concerned about primarily is the big, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is that sun, that thing that comes out every day. Okay? That's there. And that also affects, it protects us from cosmic rays with its magnetic shield around the solar system. And the Earth has a magnetic field too, which protects us from cosmic rays and even rays of the sun. Now we have a South Atlantic anomaly now where the magnetic field is just collapsing. Our magnetic field has been collapsing generally at a very fast pace over the past several decades, almost a century. It has nothing to do with CO2, doesn't affect the magnetic field. And the poles, the magnetic poles, what we call, everyone knows what a compass is. Okay? I mean, let's see. I mean, maybe people don't even know because they have one on their stupid smartphone. There's a compass, which people have been using for centuries. And so the whole reason that a compass will point north, it's pointing to magnetic north. Okay? And so that's the North Pole versus the South Pole. Well, the magnetic North Pole, all right, because you have to imagine it, it's like an imaginary magnet going through the center of the Earth, has been migrating towards Siberia. And the South Pole, the magnetic South Pole, which was at the South Pole, right, the geographical South Pole, is now left actually the continent of Antarctica. And those two things are on the move. And so that's another thing. It's something they call pole flip. And if something like that were to occur, which has occurred in the past, well, at the very least, it's just going to disrupt, and probably already has disrupted like honeybees and and migratory birds and herds, animals that migrating herds of animals that use everything from say some magnetite or some kind of thing in their, in their skulls or heads, that they're guided by that to find directionally, right? They use it as a compass, but it's like a biological compass. So that's a disruption that we've been seeing already. I was very pleasantly surprised last year. I had so many flowers in my backyard because I have a garden there and trying to survive. And that's this whole idea that, I wanted to point out. This is a picture from not last year, but the year before. Last year, it was even more overgrown. This is all everything you're looking at are edibles. Okay? And towards the end of yesterday's show, that's why I said I'd pick up where I left off yesterday. This should be big enough for you to make this out. But what you're seeing here are, and I might be able to sharpen this up with some filters. Let me see. No, I don't have that capability on this program. I'm not going to get into that. But I have a little garage workshop back there. That's that white door. And next to it, you can see is my lounge chair where I get my vitamin D. That's where I sit when I'm not working out in the yard. And I have a little pond, which you really can't see. It's, if you look at the first raised bed on towards the left side, just right next to that is a pond. I just dug it out myself and made a pond, and I have a little solar fountain in it. And beyond that, and all of these things, it looks like there's overgrown stuff there, but that's like wild mint plants. I have apple trees, blackberries, and then there's all sorts of herbs, spearmint too, but sage, stinging nettle, which is one of the most, you could actually survive on stinging nettle plant as eating it boiling it, like eating it like spinach. It actually contains protein, but it also contains vitamins like vitamin C. Think about that. It's one of the most healthiest herbs out there. People just don't know about it. look into that. And it grows wild, but I basically have planted it. But I have everything from sage, parsley, sage, the whole 9 yards, right? A lot of oregano, potatoes, carrots, peppers, beans, lettuce, chard, kale, everything. And you could see I have some water catchment systems on both sides of that garage. On the left side, you can see that where the roof drains into, you see like a yellow container. And that fills up, that's only several gallons. That fills up with water, rainwater, and I have an overflow that goes towards the side. And I use that for that little mini greenhouse I built, because that's where I do my seed starts. And in the early part, plants that I've started inside the house, I'll bring them out there to like get them acclimated to the outside. All right. But not fully acclimated. So I can leave them in there. So they're starting to get sunlight, but they're still protected from like if it gets down to a freeze. Right. And then on the right side of the garage, that blue container, which is more like a 30-gallon, and you can see beyond it, I have overflow containers. That's the water I collect from the other side of that roof that I end up using to water the other plants. And in an instance when we do go through like several weeks of no rain, you can see I have a hose all along the path, and I'll use that water. But that's how I survive. But technically last year I rarely used the hose at all. All right. And so it's sunshine, vitamin D3 for me, sunshine for the plants, CO2 for the plants. The CO2 that the plants give me oxygen. I in turn sit back there on the chair when I'm done my work. I have a grill back there. Like I say before, you can use a grill to boil water, make soups and stews, even pasta. You don't need MREs. You don't need to be a survivalist, a prepper, or any of that kind of weird stuff. You can live a normal life. On this video, I'm going to take this image now, and I'm going to drag this over and show you what this yard looked like before I bought this house. This is a picture of the same yard and the same garage. All right? And you see how the weeds to the right of the garage, the whole yard was like that. All right? And how ugly the fence is, and how there's virtually was no garden, nothing. You see that? And then I did this. This is the same garage. I just painted it. I painted the roof white, to waterproof it because I had some leaks there. And this is the exact same yard. And see, I have a little junk heap there, which eventually last year I turned it. It's a compost pile now. I got rid of all that garbage. But those were mainly cardboard boxes and stuff that I used to cover all these raised beds to keep the weeds out. And that tire was holding down everything. Looks like it's a trash heap. But eventually I cleaned all that up. But that's, I say this picture's 2 years old, not last year. So anyway, this is how you survive post, the end, right? And there's nothing back there except I have some speakers on either side. They're not visible. They're behind that gutter that goes into the yellow container by the greenhouse, which those are 2 mini solar panels that I have that power a DC fan in there because that little mini greenhouse will get over 100 degrees in the summertime. So I have to have an exhaust fan there, and I use solar power. But that same little mini solar panels there, and I might get another one, would still be enough also to charge my iPad and a mini and my power pack, the Jackery back here, that's running these lights. That would give me light and power. What I have these. Show you this. I wasn't prepared for this part of it, but why not? This is a receiver that people use these days. You could see, external wires, outputs and inputs, volume, treble, bass. All right. But this is very low wattage. And so it's, let's see if this one even has it listed. Some of them don't even list it. This one doesn't. But I have an AC adapter for this, which means it's DC operated. So you just clip the wires and run it. You can run it directly off of direct DC, which means direct current. But so I could listen to music as long as I have this device, an old iPad, right? And the Jackery, and maybe even that portable radio. I have a smaller, like, short wave radio, which I would recommend having, like a short wave and a weather radio, which I have. But all this stuff is really small, and I have it up there. Again, I should have brought it down today. I knew I was doing this. But you don't need a Faraday cage, Faraday box necessarily, though you can make one out of, like, just, a metal box. You could find out how to do that. And I recommend everyone do it. But they have material now, cloth. I think I have, do I still have a sheet here of it? Yeah. I don't even know why I left it here. But I just, like, dropped all of my things on my heater. My coffee warmer. It's like melt my filters. Quel disaster. My coffee's getting warm. This material, which if you look at it is kind of reflective, shiny. Well, I have a cloth, and this thing actually peels off. The back peels off. And so this is for protecting a specific thing. This was a sample that I was sent. But I have, like, a bigger sheet of cloth, which you could just lay over something or line a bag with. And you can just, if you were to save things like this, like I say, and even a smartphone, which is smaller and uses less wattage. I showed you before, the thing I'm heating my coffee on is only 7 watts. These things are like 240 watts. That's at 99%, and it's been 99% running these lights for like 2 hours a day for the past month or so. They've really improved these lithium batteries inside of these things. And they have the life expectancy of about 10 years. And there's some better versions even, and I'm going to like update my site on Great Solar Stuff. Like the logo's over here, you could see maybe behind the guitar, that sun looking thing. Great Solar Stuff. But yeah, they have Faraday Cloth now. And so what I'm saying is that in the event of something, see, a CME is like an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse. And what it does is that's how it takes down the power grid and takes out satellites and electronics. It fries them. And people can't comprehend that. They think, Well, it's impossible. I mean, the sun's like just this little ball in the sky. No, the sun's this. This is the sun. They think the sun's some ball in the sky and climate crisis, CO2. And like I said yesterday and every day, CO2 is a trace gas. 99.9% of the Earth's atmosphere is basically nitrogen, oxygen with a little bit of argon. CO2, methane, water vapor, they're like 0.1% of the Earth's atmosphere collectively. You're everything you know is wrong. Okay? And like over here, you don't know what you don't know. Okay? And people need to accept that. You don't know what you don't know. Don't pretend you do because you've heard the science guy. Who is he? That guy's a joke. He's some actor. He's some old actor. He doesn't know anything about science. Or some announcer on some network told you this. Or some school teacher who's like, voting with a teachers union and playing, saluting to the administrators of the schools so that they're just, following these mandates and dictates and teaching this curriculum that's just conditioning and indoctrinating generations of kids. They're lost. Do you understand that their dependency, the idea of a child knows nothing other than this, okay? Knows nothing other than this. It's its whole life, right? They don't know a world without, Twitter or Facebook and, now TikTok is like these things. Like, what are they going to do when they wake up one morning or in the middle of the day? Hey, I can't TikTok. I can't get on TikTok. I can't get on Instagram. I can't text my friend. And you never will ever be able to do that ever again. This is the end. What are they going to do? And so now do you understand the absurdity of what I'm trying to say about people who are into politics or Let's Go, whatever that guy is? I'm not even going to say the name. Funny, ha, 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 ha. Yeah, until what is that going to do? Right? It's like my book, the title of my book over there. Then what? Right? Then what? Do you save America? America's gone, man. Look at it. People say there's going to be a civil war. This is a civil war. It's a civil information war. All right? It's been in progress for what? For many years now. Right? Has nothing to do with the color of people's skin or genders or politics, ideologies even. It's just mass insanity. It's denial that this is the end. They just don't want to accept this is the end. All right? So it's either going to come to you from the sun directly, which is most likely, right? Or it's just going to be, or it could come in the form of a near-Earth object. Randomly two asteroids in the asteroid belt, which was once a planet, which they don't teach anybody, but it was. I mean, how stupid here you have these planets, right? More or less equidistant from each other, right? In our solar system, more or less, right? And then you have this big open space, and in that space, you have all these pieces of a planet. There was a planet there. All right? Phaeton was the name of that planet. You don't know what you don't know, and everything you know is wrong, and everything you're fixated on, it's game over. I'm not wearing a game over hat today because I've got game over right above me, and it's redundant. The end is nigh, my friends, okay? And the more you focus on, why are you focusing on the cult of personality? Criticizing people, talking about people, laughing and joking, poking fun at people at their expense. And I don't care what side of the so-called aisle or ideological, universe you're on. It's meaningless nonsense. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to have another Carrington type of event. That may take down a good portion of the grid, right? Depending on where it hits and how it hits and, what side of the planet gets the full brunt, etc. But it's definitely going to have serious repercussions for the internet and power grids and things like that. It could even cause wars. Because if it happens in certain countries that no longer have a thing, they're going to want that thing from other, if they can't produce the things they need for their people, they're going to want to take those things from people who still have those things. This is the era that we're entering right now. All right? This is this decade and the decade after. All right? So within 6 to 8 to 10 years, you're going to start seeing major changes, earth changes and changes. In another decade to a decade and a half, we're more than likely to see the end of life as we know it, a near extinction event on the planet. So, so we have anywhere from maybe 6 to 8 years to 20, coming up on maybe 24 years, something like that. All right? If it's 24 years till the absolute, total extinction type of thing where those who survive are just the lucky ones. Because there's no way. It doesn't matter how much money you have or how much. There's no prepping for this. Okay? All right, you in other words, hypocrisy for profit is what we're experiencing. Okay? But at the same token, you see these, we've constantly, in sci-fi movies, they're constantly showing these ridiculous tsunamis. Okay? Well, that tsunami that's on the screen, imagine something that's like 4 times taller than that. Maybe even 10 times taller than that, sweeping across the continent. And simultaneous to that, volcanoes going off where they weren't going off. Like in the middle of America, the New Madrid fault, going off. Earthquakes of magnitudes that you can't imagine. Not 10.9 or 10 Fukushima type of things. Try double that. Tsunamis, earthquakes that will take everything down, crumble everything to, crumbs. Skyscrapers to crumbs. And then volcanic activity that will just melt everything to nothing. And then the forces of winds, 1,000-mile-an-hour winds sweeping across, tsunamis, grinding, crushing. And literally no remnants of civilization ever existed will survive. And what survives are things like the Grand Canyon and stuff. And that's from like plasma things, that lightning type plasma discharges and things that grind out. They weren't ground out by water, right? It's like on Mars, there's these things that they say, oh, this was old riverbeds or, rivers. No, those were that was caused by like plasma discharges, arcing from planet to planet and stuff. You can't imagine, it's incomprehensible, this electric universe that we live in. And all of this is happening now. It's already started. We've seen an uptick in winds. That's not caught. None of this. This whole CO2 thing is a ruse. You have to understand that. It's a frickin' ruse. And I don't know if these people are megalomaniacs or they just gone insane. But they actually think they're going to survive this. They have all these underground bunkers and stuff and different things like that. The earth is going to shake so much those things won't hold. And there's this, what do you think? We're floating on like magma. We live on a crust. It's all liquid magma underneath us. We've seen volcanoes going off right and left because our magnetic field is weak, and that's just heating up that magma. So, if you're underground, your bunker could turn into a lava tube or just totally, or both, lava tube, and then it's going to collapse in you because of a magnitude earthquake that these megalomaniacs, narcissistic sociopaths, and psychopaths can't comprehend, or just are unwilling or in denial and won't believe. And that's what I was saying about Elon Musk. What the heck is he even thinking about? What is he even thinking about? And, people say, well, I'm going to live in this, we'll move to the mountains in Colorado or the high plains. And there's nowhere to survive this. Not underground, not up high. All right? You can't build an ark when you have like a wave that's 4 times the size of that thing. Okay? You don't surf that wave. All right? Your boat doesn't like go under it. It gets crushed, turned to splinters. The metal, the steel is bent and crushed. You see? People just don't get it. This is the end. All right? The end is nigh. It's starting now. We're seeing high winds everywhere. I'm seeing them. That's why I have this problem with my my roof and so many people. I go around and I even try to buy stuff online. You can't buy they're real expensive. It's really hard to buy certain products that are like things used to like patch roofs and things like that. Because so many people are suffering right now from this problem. Like Karav. Yeah, I did all this work yesterday on my roof. I'm hoping the part, like right now,
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
86% chance of rain at 6 a.m. Getting close. Rain. So there's a difference between showers and rain. Showers, could sometimes deal with. Okay, so let's paint this picture. Let's put it in perspective. I want to end this show and go up there and make sure I got some, so I don't get water on the floor of my bedroom in case what I did yesterday doesn't work, which I doubt if it will work. we're going to see an increase in high winds. All right. We've seen a slowing down of the Atlantic conveyor. They call it different thing now, but it's the Atlantic conveyor. It's the reason why Europe, Northern Europe and like Canada, is warmer than it should be for its location. All right. At that those high latitudes, it should be colder than it is there. You know, arguably some people will say it's kind of cold there, but in winter, but it's going to get colder. It's like the Thames will freeze again. All right. Now that's assuming there are many factors in that. Also, one thing you have to understand is, and I showed this in a video not too long ago, Alaska, Canada, and Greenland are not as big as you think they are. Okay? Like people talk about this melting thing. So I'm going to show you this real quick. And I have to report these freaks that try to invade my chat. All right. Actual size of countries. All right, let's check out this map. We've looked at this before. But this is very important, okay? This is misconceptions, true size of countries, all right? This is a mind blower, okay? You know how people say Russia, 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 right? Big deal. Look at the light blue here is what people think, right? You know, Russia, well, China too, you know. No, Russia, right? Look at it. Like the former Soviet Union, Soviet bloc. All right. Look at like Norway, Sweden, Denmark. Svalbard is like a dot. Okay. No, here's Svalbard here. I think. Yeah. Pretty sure. No, that's Iceland. Iceland, this is Svalbard. Yeah. Here's Greenland. People think Greenland's this giant thing, right? Bigger than like the size of Africa, right? No, this is the true size of Greenland. Canada, look at it, right? It's about the same size. It's smaller than the U.S., but you see what I mean? But if you were to think this, you'd think Canada was like twice the size of the U.S. Look at Alaska. That's all the size Alaska is. It's not this huge thing. See, it's the way in which they try to flatten out a map, right? To show you an atlas, and this, this is the true size of countries. So yeah, if this giant blue thing were to melt, that would be a serious problem with the ocean. But the problem is that blue thing doesn't exist. Here's Greenland. That's Greenland. All right. I just wanted to show you that, just to remind people of that. It's funny. See, you don't know what you don't know. They don't really teach kids that. I was never taught that, right, in school. So you don't know what you don't know. And in many cases, everything you know is wrong. So what we're seeing are stronger storms wind-wise, jet streams acting very unusually. Nothing to do, dips in the jet stream like we saw with Texas last year. You're going to see more and more of that kind of thing. All right, which is more and more a reason why people need to go and get go to that Great Solar Stuff site I have set up, where I have some of these fairly inexpensive things that'll like save you, at least give you a quality of life while the power goes out and stuff. I mean, this is no bull, man. This is backed by history, science, archaeology, all right? And astrophysics. And like I say, if you have to go, people have put the pieces together. So if you go to like suspiciousobservers.org and stuff and watch some of their videos where he actually brings up the peer-reviewed papers in the prestigious, so-called prestigious academic journals, and shows how all of this comes together and how this has all been studied and written about. But mainstream science in general, mainstream academia, is in complete denial of this. Just like these guys like Elon Musk who are saying, hey, we're going to put a moon base and then we're going to put people on Mars to save the human race. Mars is going to get hit by this thing here. Don't you understand? It's going to hit Mars too. And wipe out their bases. The moon has already been hit. That's what the Apollo mission was. It's Doug Vogt was the guy who brought that up. He was pointing out Apollo was the sun god. Why would you name a mission to the moon Apollo? It's because NASA at the time was going to the moon for like every reason other than you think. One, it was the rocket development was a way to, deflect the Soviet Union away from the fact that we were testing ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, and are building rockets. So the idea was it was a space race, and we were building these rockets, to go to the moon. But in reality, we were building up, it was a cover for our nuclear missile program, our ICBM program. Secondly, it was the scientists at NASA and in the leading institutions around the country who were concerned, astrophysicists, who were concerned about this concept of the sun having this nova, because they had already found evidence of it on Earth and they wanted to see if it was real. They would have to have found this stuff on the moon. All right? And that's why it was the Apollo mission. And they found the same type of beads on the moon. And since we've been to Mars with our probes, those like berries, the Martian blueberries, do you know what I'm talking about? You should. And you could find pictures of them. Those are the same. Was the third. So they found proof on 2 planets and 1 moon. That there was this solar outburst. This is the science. And then the CIA classified that book by Chan Thomas, which I read the introduction on a previous show, that describes this entire scene. What's going to happen. That gets into the stuff like this, and more. Sun expels its outer shell, causes havoc on the planets. Oh, and by the way, we're seeing these magnetic anomalies on the other planets in the solar system right now. This is happening. It's happening now. It's already begun. All right? And with each year, it's going to get more intense. Forget about climate change and all that nonsense they're trying to feed people. I said yesterday, even if you were into this CO2 thing, it would take 100 some years or more to Once CO2 is in the atmosphere, it doesn't matter, because within another 100, 200 years, if none of this stuff I'm talking about, say everything I said here, we just dodged bullet after bullet. We dodged all these bullets. Well, within the next 100 or 200 years, we're more than likely to get wiped out by an asteroid anyway. There's a lot of near-Earth asteroids coming our way in the next, half century, century and a half. That's like where Elon Musk's mind is. You see, he sees these NEOs, near-Earth objects, and he's fixated on that. And he's going, well, the Earth's going to get hit. Or he may be, his Mr., battery car type of thing. He may have drank the CO2 global warming Kool-Aid and think the Earth is going to, heat up from like a trace gas CO2, which is like the giver of life. He's going to wish he had CO2 on Mars. Of course, he won't be there, because he's even just admitted, as much as just a couple of days ago, several days ago, that they probably won't, at the earliest, it'll be 5 years before they get the first successful, say, woman. I think they want to send, I don't know if they want the first woman. No, the first woman's going to go to the moon. So the first manned and woman mission to Mars, first rocket. But it could take 10 years, he admitted. Well, after 2030, 2032, we'll already be, this thing will be this disaster stuff is going to be ratcheting way up. In fact, this thing may by 2030, we may already be, in a full-blown near extinction event. And because there are so many factors and so many things that are kind of converging at this particular time, that, it's the classic recipe for disaster. And so being a survivalist, a prepper, and all that stuff, worried about a civil war, race war, or some stupid thing, or Save America, politics, the cult of personality of entertainers and politicians and millionaires, billionaires, whatever, to understand how out of touch with reality that is. No, you don't. And the average person doesn't. But you really need to understand that. I mean, this is what they're hiding from you. And if they're not hiding it from you, it's just that it's in the background because everyone's obsessed with these nonsensical, ridiculous things. They're making money. Then it's basically has to do with this. Hypocrisy for greed, right? Everybody's making a buck on divisiveness and politics. So, and they've got their YouTube channels and their podcast channels, and they're all making money and buying all this tech stuff, talking about AI, and Zuckerberg's talking about VR and AR and the metaverse. Stock market goes up. Bitcoin goes up. None of this stuff matters. Bitcoin especially, any kind of cryptocurrency is ridiculous at this juncture. You have to understand, in a grid down situation, you can't have a digital currency. What they really need to be doing is if people were really smart, they would be getting more into some sort of coin currency. See, if we would have a minimal situation where in the early years, because there'll be years to survive. It's like that movie Don't Look Up or Look Up, whatever. If you have 6 months or a year to live or 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, whatever it is. It's like I said yesterday, you're not going to, like, only a fool's going to, like, what, roll up in a ball and just cry and be depressed? No. Live the life. It's like if, it's like, I'm a cancer survivor. All right. I had a cancer operation. And I get a PSA test. My next PSA test is in January something or other, end of January. Well, if I were to get some kind of like bad news or something like that, if someone said, hey, you got 6 months to live, you got a year to live or something like that, or even a couple of years to live, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, I'm going to go out with a bang. I'm going to say, look, give me the best drugs you can that will give me the ability to, drink and party and go out with a bang. So my liver and kidneys don't fail before this other thing takes over or whatever. You know what I mean? You got to live your life. Your quality of life is the most important thing. And that's where governments have failed people. Because the whole idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, our ability, that's been curtailed. And that's why it's a former United States. I don't care if you're a libertarian. I say freedom is fun because it is for now. That's why I moved to the outskirts of town where I can be free, somewhat free. Right? But, otherwise, you have to understand that its quality of life is the only thing that matters. Young people who, when you think you're dying or, things are really bad or someone around you is ill, you don't care about money. You don't care about anything, right? And so that people are just so diverted from reality and the important things in life. But yeah, when I look at cryptocurrency, I go, well, that's as bad as, being dependent upon the internet and being caught up in that whole, ridiculous world. That thing's coming to a crash, either way. And, you're getting the coins, if, people would be much better to have hard currency for trade, because the barter system doesn't work. In theory, these preppers and stuff say, oh, yeah. You'll be bullets and toilet paper, Actually, quite frankly, what you really want is, where is the thing? What you really want is this, what I've done. This house that I bought that looked like this, that was my yard. I mean, the house itself, but the house itself, I had to do a lot of renovations and repairs to. But it was mostly painting, cosmetic, to tell you the truth. But my rent or my mortgage, it's not rent, I don't rent. Mortgage, taxes, and insurance are $200 a month here. And I grow all that, my food in my backyard and stuff. And I could grow some. I've successfully grown food and ate it inside. Like right now, I have kale, radishes, oregano, catnip for my cat, and cilantro and some other things growing in my back porch, which doesn't necessarily, isn't really heated. It's like I have a transom open. It stays, I can keep it above 50 degrees usually. The weather has been unseasonably warm on some days, and it will shoot up to 60 or so. But the point of the matter is, this is happening. And there are many, many things like this that are happening. So, pole flip. Say, let's just look at all the possibilities of why the end is nigh, as I say here. One, it's a fact that both the North and South poles, the magnetic North and South poles, have migrated and are still migrating, which means we're on the verge of a pole flip, which will have catastrophic consequences for life on this planet. 2, the Atlantic conveyor, all right, is slowing down, which could have catastrophic consequences for countries in the northern latitudes. In other words, they'll be experiencing ridiculously cold weather that they're not prepared for. And that at the same time, these countries that have been like kind of outlawing or limiting and getting rid of pipelines for fossil fuels, they're going to have a demand for heat that, remember, electricity, most electricity is still generated by gas and coal in most areas. And that those areas, apart from places like France, which are pretty much like nuclear powered, that most European and Canadian and North America, northern United States, we are relying, we have cold winters and we're relying on these fossil fuels to heat our homes. And as we eliminate them, this is this preposterousness that's going on. We're a carbon-based civilization, whether we like it or not. CO2 and methane, they're trace gases. They're not causing the South Atlantic anomaly, the magnetic field weakening, which is allowing more cosmic rays in, which is in turn causing heating in certain areas. Right? People don't understand that, the concept of the sun, the power of the sun, but they'll go to the beach and they'll get a sunburn. But then they'll say, the same scientists, academics, right? Their wife will come home and she's sunburned. And that same professor will go to college and say, well, this, and be a signatory on a paper in a journal that says the sun has a minimal effect on the earth, on the heating of the planet. I mean, while his wife is like, got blisters on her back from falling asleep in the sun. You see what I mean? It's the source of heat, the main primary source of heat, climate, and protects us. We're seeing the same magnetic problems develop on other planets. Through our space missions, we've found evidence that this solar event has occurred. On Earth, through archaeology, we've found evidence, concrete evidence, that we know some 12,000 years ago that there was an event that happened. But through study of things like ice core and other, archaeological digs and different things, there seems to be evidence that this is a recurring thing, 12, 24, 36, and 48. Within these ranges, give or take, like I say, and, this is a reality. And then we have these smaller solar cycles, and then we have things like the Carrington Event, and then we have these other existential threats, such as like, an asteroid hitting us. We're not prepared to go up there and destroy an asteroid, like in, one of these sci-fi Bruce Willis movies or something. And this idea of we're going to save humanity by building a base on Mars, when Mars will be wiped out the same as we are. Plus, it doesn't have an atmosphere. And what kind of humanity is it? What kind of quality of life is it to live, in some dome, right? never be able to breathe, fresh air. Are they terraform Mars? What? How many tens of thousands or a million, 100,000 million years it would take? Elon Musk talks about, well, eventually the sun in 500,000 years, will get hotter and so Earth will be unlivable and so Mars would be. So you're going to like hopscotch from planet to planet and hope that you have Mars ready when that happens. You don't know, the exact, up when a star starts to, expand in its, older age, its expansion level, like say, oh, it's here for sure, not here, right? It's nonsense. It's utter nonsense. The man with the brilliance of his engineering brilliance should be on thinking in terms of improving the quality of life or coming up with some mind-blowing thing, right? Like I think, personally, and I'm going to be I only give it 10 minutes or so. I think that previous civilizations were aware of this and these obelisks and stuff, and I think they were trying to use the energy of the Earth and the electric universe to somehow create a force field around the Earth to deflect the power of the sun. And I think that all of the minds, greatest engineering minds, instead of worrying about creating new video games and CGI and missions to the moon and Mars and the next best thing to the smartphone or the metaverse, right? These imitations of life, these unrealistic, realities, that maybe they should be focusing on figuring out how to come up with a force field around the Earth, a deflector of sorts, and to get us through this thing. And maybe, just maybe in 25 years, if we go the max, 24 years, the max till this happens, that in 24 years such a Herculean effort could succeed. And I think a previous civilization, maybe 72,000 years ago, maybe 144,000 years ago, I don't know, I think may have have tried it. And when there's remnants of that, but they failed. But that's why they created the Serapeum and those boxes, and they preserved the information there and under the Sphinx in those areas. But somebody opened those boxes and has that information. That's the thing. And so what did they use that information for? Or maybe it was the preservation of their tech. Was that the tech that came out that's being used, basically right now by the hypocrites for profit? Right? And are they like, that's not going to happen again. That happened years ago, hundreds of thousand years ago. It's not going to happen again. No. Or the other option where if I were an Elon Musk and trying to build a space ship, I'd be building an ark. If you want to save human civilization, you should be thinking in terms of Battlestar Galactica. The Lorne Greene idea. And building some kind of massive spaceship. They should be building a massive spaceport in space right now and sending up SpaceX rockets, on a weekly or monthly basis with the technology that they have now to take up a ton or a couple tons at a time and be building this massive ark spaceship that will take off and head towards the edges of the universe, that has hanging in it various types of shuttles attached to it, that if they go to planets or moons in the outer reaches of the solar system, that they can explore and possibly, settle, or just generationally survive and leave, right? Or just, or just keep going until they die, right? But like, in other words, survive, the end in 2046 and live to see 2100, or beyond. And it sounds crazy, but I mean, would be not as crazy as trying to build a base on Mars and putting all these billions of dollars into these wasted efforts, or these people putting billions into bunkers, and this crazy hypocrisy of like tech and this so-called talk about rebuilding a grid, which, like I said, I have had pictures and have done shows on it this year. They can't even fix the sewer pipes. They dug up our street 3 times. And when cars and trucks go down, my entire house shakes. They didn't even know how to properly refill the road. And apparently next spring, they're going to be digging it up again. And you think they could fix the infrastructure in this country? No, the end is nigh. There's all sorts of reasons. There's all sorts of things pointing to this. There are numerous things that can happen. In all likelihood, all of them could happen. But if just one of them happens, they're going to be life-altering, civilization-altering events. And they're all in the pipeline, starting now and getting more and more likely in the coming as each year progresses. And there's never been more of a reason for you to live a good quality of life and get away from worrying about esoteric things like politics, politicians, sports, the cult of personality, the concept. I mean, flus. The flu is nothing. I think I caught Omicron last week. And I woke up this morning and yesterday, and I'm fine. I think it's like a common cold type of thing, it seems. Isn't that what the South African doctors have said? And then didn't the CDC take the 10-day quarantine down to 5? And the South Africans had decided to just reopen and get rid of their mandates where it started, and they said it was a mild thing. People worried about flu, forget about that divisiveness. That's just the media trying to sell TV commercials. Get people riled up, right? They're 0.1% or 1% of the population who are news junkies, right? And this let's go whoever. Who cares? Who fucking cares, man? You better figure out a way to get your life together and live. Who cares who at the 2022 elections or 2024 elections of what? The former United States? Western civilization's gone, man. Just get your act together and figure a quality of life for you and whoever's around you. And if you're a person that wants to be around somebody, find somebody. Find community or find something to do. Find happiness, seek happiness, the pursuit of happiness. That's what your focus should be on. No person. Hey, look, save America. Look, the guy in office right now, the poor bastard who's lost his mind. He doesn't know what he's doing, and the vice president is clueless. The country's being run by people who used to watch that show, The West Wing. They're like acting through. There is nobody in charge. I mean, the old world order, the Davos set and the billionaires, they're kind of America's a corporatocracy. Why is it still existing if there's nobody in charge? Because like the corporations and like these alphabet agencies, the CIA, they've always been running things. So between the CIAs and NSAs and FBIs and then the other ones, the DIAs and other ones you don't even know about. And the corporatocracy, big tech and big finance and the military contractors and big ag and all that shit. Big pharma, of course, big time right now. Yeah, it's just, it's a company, it's a corporation, it's just running itself. There is no, Trump isn't going to save the world. He was in office. Look what they did to him. They would double and triple down if he were even to win again, or if somebody like him was in there. And the same goes with this guy now. The people have lost, his own party's lost faith in this guy. There's no Democrat savior. Who? They're going to bring in, an old version, Hillary Clinton, who will then be 4 years older than she. It'd be the same thing. She'll be like another Nancy Pelosi. I mean, these, they're just too old. It's old times. It's over. The future is a corporatocracy. That's even why cryptocurrency is growing in many circles, because there's a changing of the guard in that regard, though what those people don't understand is that the end is nigh anyway, so that they kind of blew it. These old folks hung on for too long, and now by the time the next generation takes over, it's all over anyway. And the next generation is going to be totally lost because they're not going to know what to do when they don't have any internet, right? Or power, right? Because their lives are dependent on that for happiness. Whereas I can be happy, here. On that lawn chair in the sun, listening to music, right? Eating fresh, biting into a fresh apple or a fresh tomato or something, soaking up the sun, listening to good music. I mean, that's life. It's the Garden of frickin' Eden. All right? That I built from nothing, from scratch with my hands. Okay? Now that's me. There may be some other interest you have, but you should be putting your efforts into making your place, your special place, your special life. There were times in my life when all I thought about was laying in bed with some woman I was in love with, and I would be content to have an endless supply of beer, a wine cellar filled with bottles of beer and liqueurs and a great music sound system and a woman in a king-size bed. And it would be like, listen to music and entertain ourselves and do some creative things and just make love every night. Right? I'm divorced twice, and I've been through a half dozen relationships. So those days are over for me. But I mean, whatever it is, that's a good way. That's a good way to go out. Maybe you are into gaming and stuff like that. Well, I would be doing everything I could to get a Faraday cage and to get my favorite games and stuff like that, and have those things preserved so I could just keep playing those games. And not be dependent upon an internet connection and necessarily with playing those games where you play with other players outside, wherever. Whatever you're interested. There's still people who love books, and I would just make sure I have a library, secured. I think I have enough books that I could probably spend a couple of years just reading books I haven't read yet. And the list goes on and on and on. There are many things to do that don't require a grid and things like that. But you are going to want to have something like this, so at nighttime you have light, or that you can listen to music, digital music and stuff like that, sound system, and maybe have some kind of portable radio. Like I say, the ideal would be a shortwave radio with a weather band type of thing and stuff like that. So you could be in touch with long distances and find out what's going on and see what is still out there, right? because there may be certain things that survive, right? You know, like the atomic clock. I have a clock that's connected to the atomic clock, right? You know, which you can buy for like, you know, $69.95, or maybe it's up to $100 now. But you can get a thing like that, you know, through a radio frequency or something. There are these little tiny things, like I said, like even just this, even like what I have on top of this, that little mini greenhouse, that little tiny baby solar panel that didn't even cost $100, that I use for a fan. But that thing could be used to like charge this thing. They call it trickle charge. It would take long. It's not like it's going to charge it really fast. But I'd have a couple of these things, right? And they're, you know, definitely. I'd have a couple of radios. I'd have a couple, an old iPhone, old iPad. I told you, you know, a set of speakers and a mini amp. It's a digital amplifier. You'd be surprised. These things push a lot. I have Bose speakers in my kitchen bar. Man, it blast your ears out, right? So I'd have one or two of those things. You could buy those for $19.95 and stuff. You know, instead of wasting money and doing all these stupid things. And it's the same with food. Like, you know, I just want to end this thing. You know, like the so-called prepping. If you're not like me and you're not going to create a Garden of Eden in your backyard, well, don't think in terms of meals ready to eat, MREs and sacks of rice and all these other things that you try, the survival food they try selling you. Think in terms of everything you eat on a normal basis. Like, you know, if you have kids, what do kids like? Mac and cheese, right? A case of mac and cheese. You could buy mac and cheese at these places like Save-A-Lot, sometimes Walmart, but places like that for like 39 cents a box. Sometimes if you buy a case at one of those big, you know, discount stores, you can get them as cheap as $0.25 a box. Right? Well, you can make mac and cheese. See, I have a little grill to the right of that blue, to the right of the garage. First is the water catchment thing. That black little rectangle or squarish looking thing is a grill. Well, like people think of grills, hot dogs, hamburgers, and steaks. Well, first of all, you have a cast iron pan and a pot with a lid. So you could use any combustible material in there. You could be burning cardboard, pieces of old furniture that are useless now, pieces of wood, sticks, twigs. You know, like this tree, the tallest tree to the right is just kind of a tree. I think it's a mulberry tree, but the birds usually like get rid of anything on there before I've ever seen any mulberries or whatever it is. But that thing grows like frickin' crazy. And like last year I had to trim it way down. And I ended up with these like, you know, I don't know, the limbs of the tree that were about so wide, and I cut them down to be about this. Let me just get my hands right. To be about this long. Okay. And I ended up with a kind of like a stack of them. And, you know, you can cut those up into small pieces, let them dry out, and the same with other twigs and things, like just grow. Like I have a little maple tree in the backyard too that grows pretty crazy. Those things they just want to keep growing and growing. That's a small yard. This is a really small yard. It's only 19 feet wide. Do you understand? 19 feet wide. It's actually 18 feet wide because it extends to the other side of the fence. About a foot, I think. That's an 18-foot wide yard. Look how much stuff is there. You know, the area you're looking at is probably the size of some of these people who have a giant living room, combination living room, dining room type of thing. That's what I'm saying. And there's enough food there to feed a family. All right? But what I was saying with this grill, and I'll end with this, is that if you have a cast iron pan and you have a pot, like a stainless steel pot, preferably one with one of those copper bottoms. It's better at, getting the heat, equally distributed, especially if you're cooking. You can put that on a grill. You start your fires like I say, even in here you can see the old cardboard boxes in the back, right? Because everybody orders stuff from Amazon and all these places. I have a stack of cardboard boxes in my garage that I keep talking about taking to the recycling center, but I've more or less just been flattening them out and stacking them up and saying, that's fuel. And so what I'm saying is that you buy macaroni and cheese, the stuff you eat every day, pasta, cans of sauce, those little cans of sauce, which you can buy for 39 cents, tomato paste, fresh fruit cans. A lot of this stuff has like shelf lives of a couple of years. Always look at the date, expiration dates. I bought something the other day that had an expiration date of 2025 on it, right? So it's real easy to find stuff that's 2, 3, even more years out, some of these things. Now I'm growing fresh food, and then there's like these fresh herbs. So and like I say, that's a small area. You can grow if you just have a patio or if you just have a balcony. You can grow some fresh food so you get to have some fresh herbs and some fresh things. But you want to supplement your meals with canned pineapples or canned this or whatever. But you can just put water in a pot and boil it on a grill, a backyard grill, and make macaroni and cheese or spaghetti for your kids. You could put a frying pan down, right? And you could make you could fry up vegetables and stuff like that. So the only things that you need to maybe preserve is maybe to have some oils or things like that. But even you don't really need them. You'd be surprised what you could do, and I've done in a pinch. You can make stews and stuff with just water. So the type of things you want is the ability to have rain catchment, and things like that. Anyway, I'm going to end this there, but I'm going to continue this probably maybe tomorrow. We'll get into this kind of thing. And so this particular shirt, Freedom is Fun, may not be our, I'm going to add, let's put in image, well, not that one. Image, shirt. And let's see what other shirts I have here. I don't know if anybody really wants to wear this one. I should have done a better job of cleaning the white around that out. Yeah. But anyway, to make a long story longer.
Good morning.
Take care, and I will talk to you tomorrow, the last day of the year, and maybe the last day of these daily broadcasts. This is broadcast 364. I've been doing this for almost 2 hours a day, every day.